Oh my gosh. Hello, hello, Megan. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here today on the I Got It Girl podcast. You were like the first one of the first that I thought of. So that's why you're going to be one of the first that come out on this thing. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you. I'd love to just dive right in to like tell the world about yourself, whatever you want to share.
I am so excited to be here as well. As you know, I'm a big fan of Jackie and how you operate, and I can't wait for the world to hear your voice on the regular, and I'm so happy
Mm,
that I get to be a part of it. So,
thank you.
about me, Megan has lived a few hundred lives,
You're
and I
right.
like that about
I'm
myself.
always shocked about everything you've done. I'm like, what? And what? Hold on a second. Wait till you guys hear this, guys. It's amazing.
So I like to reinvent myself, but I've been an Air Force weather forecaster. I was an aerial photographer, space weather forecaster,
How did I not
and
know about
then
photographer? Hold on a second. Keep going. But how did I know
aerial
about I
photographer.
had
That one
no
was
idea.
actually, that one is one of my favorite stories because I totally created that job. I called the business and I was like, you know what you need is your own weather forecaster. And here's why. And they were like, you know what we do? And they created a position for me. So that was like my first
Oh,
job out of
I
college.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. When I was a space weather forecaster, I was on rotating crazy shifts, and my husband was on rotating crazy shifts. And we just decided that wasn't the life we wanted. So we created a children's indoor playground that focused on space science and STEM. So we had like a planetarium inside the playground area and three giant
So
playgrounds
cool.
and a bunch of interactive science displays and obviously a full espresso cafe inside because parents matter too.
Yes, they do.
And now I focus on coaching women, high achieving women that are sort of at the top of their ladder that they had presented to them. And now they're looking around thinking, what do I want to do now? The art of reinvention is a fun one. And I love to be there for them in that transition.
Mm. And so, quick note: how Megan and I met. Gosh, I think it's been a couple years now, right?
Yep.
It all blends, right? It feels like we've been friends forever, but it's been a couple years. And one of the first things that really like drew me into Megan was her connection with human design. And if you haven't heard of human design, you'll get links down below, of how to further dive into that. But it is a rabbit hole, and it's an amazing rabbit hole to be in. But she really opened my eyes in that world of human design, and that's one of the tools she uses for what she just described. She does for women, which is amazing. But when I met you was when you during Kid Space. So I always forget that. When did you start Kid Space? What year was it?
2018, the
Okay,
middle
so
of 2018.
you've got this big brick and mortar that you guys are like, like let's just dive into this big brick and mortar concept, and that's a big undertaking in itself. Being an entrepreneur in a business like what we have now with coaching, it's a lot less overhead, a lot less stress, right? Because we don't have like, I don't know, God knows how much bills that you had with this overhead of real estate that you have to pay for and stuff. But I was impressed immediately off the bat with your quote unquote resume, I say, but with your ability to just trust yourself and do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing. So were you always like that? Like as a kid leading up to that
So
place?
I feel like I was always that I was much more like that before COVID, and we are talking about COVID. Kidspace opened in middle of 2018 and we were profitable pretty much right away, and then at the end of, or the beginning of 2020 we were looking for new locations. And
Mm,
when obviously February of 2020, we're like about to sign a lease. And then March of 2020, everything shut down. And we were in
wow.
Colorado, so it was pretty substantial. Like we were closed for like 6 months, and then we had 10% capacity, and then we dropped back, and then we went back up.
It
And
makes
so it
me
was really
sweat.
about a year.
Makes me
Yes.
sweat thinking about it.
Exactly. And like you said, our overhead was, I mean, 50,000 a month. So if we weren't
Wow.
like, that was just like stacking up debt and not bringing in cash. And so it was that moment made me really realize how much I had trusted myself before, because it started to put me into this like hyper control mode.
Mm,
So before that happened, I always just kind of trusted my gut. I trained with the Olympic coach for a little bit when I was a kid for gymnastics. I knew when it was time for me to come back home. And I just was like, this is a business. I don't want to be a part of this. When I was in college, I decided to go into the military and I had a blast. I just enjoyed everything about it. I got in trouble every day in basic training for smiling because it was just like the
I love
right
that story.
move for me at the time. Which is such a strange thing to say, but it's like, it really depends on how you are approaching it. I was so
Mhm.
excited to do something that was like weird that other people around me weren't doing that I went into it with this joy and
Mhm.
trust. Like you said, I trusted that I was in the right place. And so went up through the ranks on that. I did the aerial photography thing because I decided I didn't want to be a tap dancing, weather forecaster on TV. And so like all of those transitions, I always just was kind of like, okay, well, I've done what I want to do here. I'm interested in this new thing. And I would just pivot and I would trust it and I would move. So yeah, I think most of my life, I just trusted my instincts.
So that's amazing. And for those of you who've been listening to the I Gotta Go podcast, you know that this we really are we're looking at stories of women who came from a place of that control, fear, and survival. Like I started when I was 7, learning that skill of survival. And if I had to eat, I had to figure out how to cook. If I had to need laundry, I had to figure out how to do the laundry machine. Like there was nobody really there to help me. I had amazing family, but they were either older or my dad was working because my mom passed away. And we're going to hear that story multiple times, probably throughout this podcast. But so it really created this fierce independence. And the I Got It girl is that fierce independent woman who's like, I got it. I don't need any help. Like, but they're in this place of, I must control it to navigate it. And it's usually from survival and fear. And that happened early on for me. So what I love about your story is it's kind of like reverse, right? Where like you had this natural gut intuition trusting way of being, and I think I had it too for some years through my like college, high school, college, different years that I can pinpoint. But then there's this point that you're describing now where you start to lose that and you start to slide into control from obvious fear with $50,000 a month with a place that's not making any money, because it's closed or 10% capacity, right? So I can imagine like you experiencing the sliding into that control from fear and survival in that mode. And I'm curious, what were things different that you experienced yourself doing then that was like just, and I'm imagining, and I don't want to assume because I know what that does, right? But it was making you feel resistance, making you feel struggle, making you feel things that were so opposite of what you always knew, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me about that zone, because what I know of Megan now is that she's back on the other side. So
Finally. Yes.
yes. So tell me about
So
that.
I will say that it is something that sneaks up on you, especially when it happens. I mean, I was 42 when that
Mm-hmm.
happened. So I had a lot of my life. I was a commander in the military. I was a lead officer in Colorado.
Thriving. You're thriving everywhere you go,
Yeah,
is what you're
everything was
doing.
fine. Everything was working. And so I was very established. So it started really with just being like, okay, now that I don't have control of this thing, like I'm closed and that's not my choice. I started doing like the disaster loans and the PPP loans and the any kind of grant that we could apply for. So it started out by keeping myself sane by working, like hyper working,
Mm-hmm.
which again really wasn't my MO. Like I've always been somebody who like had a really good like work hard, play hard kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very like in it. How do I fix this? How do I do this? How do I make sure my employees are paid? How do I, And then so by the
Mm-hmm.
time I was a year, into 2021, I was starting to forecast like how much time I had before the money was totally gone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
coming as a weather forecaster and a space weather forecaster, like you take data in and you come up with some scenarios, right? But when it's constant and those scenarios are changing, and like kept doing the math, different kinds of math. Well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, then this is how that's going to end, and I have until July. If this happens and this happens and this happens, then this is how it's gonna end. It's gonna be like September. And so what I figured out is that I was just white knuckling every
Mm-hmm.
single thing that was coming through. And we were coming back Kid Space came back really strong. We had our best year in 2023, but it was just like by then my nervous system was completely shot because I was just in, like you said, survival mode. It was like both my husband and I were all in on that. We did not have other careers. We had two kids. You
Hmm.
know, there was just a lot going on. And so that 2023, when we were at our kind of peak as far as like what we had come back from in kid space, I was able to kind of step back enough to recognize how different I had become and how unhealthy I had become.
Hmm.
Like my body was responding badly to
It's
that
probably
kind of
storing everything
lifestyle.
and storing and storing and storing all that stress.
A
Because
hundred
I'm a
percent.
stress is the number one killer, no matter. Yes, we
Yes,
talk about eating and working out and all that stuff, but the stress is the number one
it
thing.
was
And I can
bad.
imagine how
And
high that was for you.
exactly. And like you said, that with the I got it girl piece is like I was so worried about how everybody else, are my employees going to be okay? Is my husband going to be okay? And he was, of course, doing the same thing on the other side because
Right.
that's, you know, that's what you do. But I was just like hyper controlling everybody's, I'll call it landing. Like, where are they
Mm,
going to land? Are they going to need new jobs? Are they going to, you know, is it everything? I was controlling all the money. I was controlling all the people. I was controlling every piece.
mhm,
And I had to really step back and say, okay, like, why? Like, I can only deal with what is happening today.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
no more forecasting, no more making up stories in my head, no more if this happens and this happens and this happens. Like, it has to be like, what's in front of my face today? What can I control in this present moment? And like, really center myself in the present again.
That's
That was the
beautiful.
only way that I could like come out of it.
That's beautiful. And something you said that just I want to point out is that we have this human way of wanting to either live in the past that we cannot change or those future worries that we cannot control. And that I'm imagining, because I know that when I do this, when I sit in those future worries, like my body believes it's true and it hasn't even happened yet. Right. So all the things that the worry, all the things that we're imagining in the
Mhm.
worry is actually impacting our body and it hasn't even happened yet. And I had a client one time that went into the hospital over anxiety, over the fear of what she thought would happen to her daughter when she went away at this point. For a point, it was like post high school in college. And she literally put herself into a state of hospitalization because of it, because of how, and it had nothing happened. Like it was
Yeah.
just the imagination. So I just want to bring out one
Physically
point.
sick.
Right. And I just want to point out one thing to the listeners, because if you did that with your imagination of what's possible and of what your vision and what you desire, like it's the same power inputted into there, because our brain only like wants to like prove right what it is that we believe. So in that moment, you're like, okay, this is what I can control. This is what I can, and I'm a big fan of radical responsibility and what do I control? What can I take care of? I'm curious, did that lead you into the coaching and human design, or was that beforehand? Or
So
was it
I was already, it was kind of simultaneous because I had actually started business coaching before COVID hit because I
okay?
was like, this is rocks. Like like I love like being able to control my own schedule. And I love that we created this thing and that it came to life. I mean, really
Mhm.
like from the day that we came up with the name to like the day that we were like, oh, we should have a planetarium to, you know, like the first day that we actually purchased like our astronaut, you know, kind of mascot guy that
So
everybody
cute.
like posed in front of, like those things that were all in our head came to life. And so the coaching came from that because I was like, man, there is nothing like being able to be like, I want this wall to be purple and that wall is purple because that's what I said and that's what I want. And so yeah, I think that being in that space, I wanted to coach, but then I got knocked down so hard that I had a hard time coming up with what to coach because I was like feeling like, well, my business is like struggling in the background because of all this stuff. It wasn't my fault. I mean, I didn't close the doors, but I still felt like, how am I going to go out there and like coach people
Mhm.
on this stuff? And so when I started working on myself, I was like, okay, how do I operate? Like, how have I always done these transitions all of my life without even questioning it? Like, people were like, are you crazy? You're going to leave your job and start this 10,000 square foot business? Like, what is wrong with your brain? And I didn't have any, it was just like, yeah, I am. That's what I'm going to do. And so I was trying to find my way back to me, and human design to me, like you said, it can be a rabbit hole if you try to go like down all the avenues, especially all at the same time. But just the like top five overarching pieces are such a good tool for turning that lens back on yourself and asking yourself questions about how you operate
Mm-hmm.
energetically instead of like we like to do online in the online world, especially looking around and being like, oh, she made it because she did it this way. I'll try it that way. And then you can waste a whole bunch of time doing it that way and then go, oh, I actually hate that. I don't want to do it. And then you do the same thing. Oh, well, this guy did it this way. I'm going to try it that way. Even though like,
Mm-hmm.
this is not how, like, I don't want to do it this way.
Right.
And until you look at yourself and you say, actually, how do I operate? Well, like, how do I get my best opportunities? How do I make decisions that I trust on repeat over and over again? How do I present myself in the world? What do people come to me for?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things like really make you separate in the world that feels like there's a lot of repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And so human design for me was all about turning that lens in and being like, okay, stop looking around and start looking inside and like, let's go back to your natural way of operations.
And so that whole, I always say this about Megan's work with me was like, I got a permission to be me. You know, like there was a awareness. Awareness is the key to all change. So if you feel like there's something you just get in resistance, it's because you're not operating in your natural way of being, and you're looking. I like to talk about how we like to look externally, outside sources to fill the internal needs, and the three
Yep.
foundational needs is love, safety, and belonging of every human. So when we have the bad relationship or doesn't feel right, it's because we're looking for that relationship to fulfill a hole within us that we need to fill ourselves. So part of the I Got It Girl shift is going from that control and fear to letting go and loving self, trusting self, feeling safe in self, and that you start to thrive in a different way because you are trusting in your decisions, you're trusting in the way you execute things, the way you I always I love by hell yes hell no kind of deciding, you know,
Hmm.
like it's like now it's like if it's not a hell yes I don't do it, like until it becomes a hell yes in my body. And I didn't always trust that, and I would
Yeah.
make decisions based on, you know, I would hire the $20,000 coaching program because I'm like, well, they're making more money and they're telling me if I do this, I can make more money. Well, because I'm still looking for them to do it for me. And when in reality, like, no, it's me. Like, and I'm not saying I don't mean do this alone. I mean, looking for someone else to fulfill what it is that I think I need externally. And so the human design part, when I got my little report and learned everything through you, which she does a fabulous job, it really showed me. I learned a little bit about it before I met you through a previous mentor, but I didn't dive in deep until you showed me those foundational things. And it always gives me this a higher level of trust in myself because I understand myself. And now I I know I'm the only one I can control. I don't ever try to control other people anymore, but it just gives me that, like, I don't know, the operational okay.
Yeah.
And so I
I
feel like
like
that's
to
what brought you.
say, yeah, I like to say self-discovery is self-mastery. And that
Mm-hmm.
is where you really know and trust how everything comes through. Then when you hire a $20,000 mentor, you're getting what you should be getting from a
Yes.
mentor like that, which is how you implement. Like
Mm-hmm.
those mentors, like they're not, you don't pay $20,000 so somebody can give you a template that says, do it exactly like me. That is
Yeah.
not what that's for. That, if you're paying high ticket in that way, it's about bringing yourself forward.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not in a space for that, then you can waste your time there.
Yes.
So you
And
have
I
to
did
have
not
that
understand
permission
that.
slip in a solid place before you get there.
Yes. Looking back, I understand that now. I
For sure.
understand that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so for sake of time, I want to get to this place where now, Megan, now, tell me, like, where is she in this whole of letting go, trusting, surrendering, the other side, the recovering I got a girl, you know? Where is she now?
The recovering, I got it, girl. I love that. Yes. So, like I said, in kind of the 2023 timeframe, I had already started the human design journey, and I was stepped back and was like, okay, what can I do right now in this moment? And one of the things that I really focused on was looking at how I used to get myself through things. And so through that, I was able to kind of put together my own methodology, which I call the four core stories. And they're basically like four archetypes of stories that we tell ourselves when we are resisting what our intuition is telling us to do.
Mm.
So there's always these little messages that you have in the back of your head. They're a little foggy, but they circle around. They're like, hey, knock, knock. Like, there's this thing that I think you should do. Jackie, you should start a podcast, like all these little messages. But it, like that fog can be really hard to work with.
Mhm.
And so you have to first bring the thing forward and look at it
Mhm.
in front of you and say, okay, like what is my intuition trying to tell me? And then once you have that defined, really look at like what are the stories that I'm telling myself about that not being possible or that not being the right move or how other people are going to see me or what kind of bad things are going to happen in my life if this works. I think in my opinion often we're more afraid of success than we are of failure because it's unfamiliar.
Mhm.
That next jump, that next evolution, that next identity is not familiar to us yet. And so it feels scary. I mean,
Mhm.
your fear is there to give you a like,
I can
hey, just
vouch.
make sure you're looking at where you're going. And so it's a good thing to listen to and then say, okay, but it's okay, I've got this. So
Mhm.
the now I have a really good handle on how I used to make those big pivots and those big transitions. And I know that there's a whole lot of women out there that are capped out. I mean, I was like 32 when I was at the very top of where I could get to in my government position. And I was like, so I just am going to sit here for 30 years in this chair doing the same thing. Like, have you met Megan? We don't do that. So, and if you know what a 3-6 is in the human design world, you know why, because I like to do all the things. And so I basically nailed down how I use human design to help people figure out how they operationally, like
Mhm.
energetically operate, gene keys for what they're here for, who they're here to
Mhm.
be, and then my four core stories to get very clear on where they want to be next, and then figure out how to identify the things that are getting in their way and clear them. Like
Excellent.
if you say, I
Yeah.
want to go be a surgeon, and one of the things that comes up in your head is I'm going to have to go back to school. Well, that's true, right? Like there are some of those things that you need to identify because they're true things and you need to actually take action on that. But a lot of it is just stories we're telling ourselves.
Mhm.
And that was like we talked about before, where I was talking, like my story in my head was like, I'm not successful in this business because I'm closed. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, are you not?
Yeah, right,
Like,
right.
so, and we had, 50,000 people coming through our doors a year. So, like, I
Mhm.
know it was a successful business, whether we were forced to close or not. And so, those
Yes.
stories that we like, what are my, what's my family going to think? How are people going to treat me? I'm going to be so overwhelmed and busy if I'm actually making $1 million. Like those
Mhm.
people are exhausted and they have poor family lives, or all those stories. Like which
Mhm.
ones are true, which ones are not true.
Mhm.
So that's where I am right now. That's what I work with people on, is just like they're the rules aren't real. That's
Mhm.
like my big message. Like the rules aren't real. You get to dictate how your life goes. And once you decide that's the track you're on, it's going to happen.
Well, you answered the last question. The rules aren't real. That's the takeaway. Like, we think that we have to go by the rules of external sources and society and different things, when in reality, you set the rules. You determine what is, and the more you're, like you said, familiar with self, and the more you have that self-actualization and understanding, the better that you can trust in your own rules, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we're not here saying that like, okay, and she doesn't have any struggles anymore. Nothing happens bad in life anymore, right? Like we know what's gone on in our lives for the last couple of years since we've known each other, right? And
Mhm.
but I think the key is, and something that I'm really like passionate in my mission is to help women know how to handle the gap,
Yeah.
the time frame between the now and the then, the challenging pieces in between there. It's like, how do you trust and have more peace and calm amongst the chaos of life,
Hmm.
and trust that. And so yeah, the rules aren't true. I love that. I love that. Is there anything else you want to add to a takeaway before we wrap it up?
No, I really think that's the biggest one is we sometimes create our own rules and our own locks on the
Yep.
cage of our life, right? And we really often, it is not often, every
Yeah.
time you are the key. You are the master key. That
Hmm.
is, you can unlock any cage that you've put yourself in at any time. And so if you have something on your heart that is telling you that you're ready for a change and you want to experience something different in your life, you want to live it in a different way, whether that's
Hmm.
bigger or smaller,
Hmm.
you
Yeah, it
get to
doesn't
do
have to be
that.
huge. That's, I think,
No,
another thing. People are like, oh, but the $1 billion business or this. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
no.
about everyday life, trusting and owning, as I talk about, awakening, empowering, and owning who you are in just the everyday
Yes,
choices and the peace you will feel when you get there. Okay, so
absolutely.
Megan and I can talk forever, and we know this about ourselves. So we do have to, and we probably do more episodes in the future. So
Of
keep
course.
your ear open for future and eyes open for future episodes with Megan. Um, but where can they find you if they want to like get into your world? Like, where are the best places for them to connect with you?
So really the easiest place to go is to my link tree. So it's just Meghan Stockman. And then my website is meganstockman.com. And my Instagram is Megan wants to do everything. So
Can you tell? Can you tell? She's already described all the things she's done, right? So that's a perfect name for her. And all of those links will be in the show notes. So check those out and at your leisure. And just, I highly suggest you connecting with Megan at some point in time. It'll change your life. So, Megan, thank you so much for coming today and being part of this and being one of my first few of the
so fun.
podcast. I'm
Thank
so
you for having
excited.
me.
You're amazing. Thank you so
You
much.
are amazing.